that he's not the University of Michigan, Michigan. It's Michigan State, Michigan, where they are. So it's okay. You know, if you hear Michigan, don't worry. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for the opportunity we have to gather together and learn more about how to manage what you've given us. Because truly we are stewards. We have to manage wisely what you've given us. And it becomes increasingly important in our world where there are a lot of financial pressures and a lot of different things happening with the economy. And we just want to do the best we can with what you've given us. So help us to be wise. Just help Jack to recount all the things that he's studied and the things he prepared. Help us to be able to understand that and apply it in our own lives. And we just thank you for blessing us, for being with us, for guiding us. Help us today to have a productive time. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Today is all of us who are finance nerds. I'm going to call this Nerd Celebration Day. We're going to have some fun this morning. And there's time, too, to kind of play around with some of these work files and do what-if scenarios. So if you, during these breaks, if you want to just come here. I've got my computer here. We can get this set up at the first break to play around with budgets and play around with investing and retirement planning scenarios, various inputs. Please, let's play with the model and do some what-if scenarios. I would like to read this morning from Psalm 4. You know, the purpose of this workshop is to learn about personal finance and managing our money God's way, but it's also to encourage each other and to build each other up in love and edify one another. So one of my goals on this trip for this seminar was to encourage you and to help you in any way that I can to budget, to invest, to plan, to be wise, and as Don prayed so beautifully, to be good stewards of how God has blessed us. And so that's the goal. It's not about getting through all these slides. It's not about standing here and talking. It's more about encouraging one another and building each other up in love. That's the whole thing. And I thought Psalm 4 would be a good way to start this morning because it talks about encouragement and having a joyful countenance from God. I love this part. Answer me when I call, O God of my righteousness. You have relieved me in my distress. Be gracious to me and hear my prayer. O sons of men, how long will my honor become a reproach? How long will you love what is worthless and aim at deception? That's all about the world around us, isn't it? Verse 3. But know that the Lord has set apart the godly man for himself. The Lord hears when I call to him. Tremble and do not sin. Meditate in your heart upon your bed and be still. Offer the sacrifices of righteousness and trust in the Lord. Many are saying, who will show us any good? And again, that's the world around us, isn't it? Who wants to just drag us down? Lift up the light of your countenance upon us, O Lord. You have put gladness in my heart, more than their grain and new wine, more than when their grain and new wine abound. In peace I will both lie down and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, make me to dwell in safety. Isn't that beautiful? Where's my clicker? All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. This morning, what I want to do this morning, yeah. Perfect. We're going to talk about living within our means. And we're going to talk about budgeting this morning. Looking at a budget that's what I call upside down budget. In other words, the expenses are more than the income. And then we're going to look at ways that in this scenario we can balance our budget, things we can do to balance our budgets. And then we're going to look at a balanced budget, what it looks like before, what we did, and then in the after. We're going to look at some budget spending reduction ideas. I've got some things I want to share with you. We're going to talk about the debt snowball or debt acceleration and giving. And then I want to share with you 7 steps for building wealth. We'll talk about that. And then we'll move from that into investing, basics of investing. Investing 101. And the idea of risk. I want to share with you the power of consistency in investing, how powerful that is. We're going to talk about 401k plans and IRAs, Roth and conventional IRAs. Oh boy, that sounds exciting. 9 reasons to invest in a Roth IRA. And then talk about retirement. When should I retire? And 3 rules for retirement distributions. And then after that, we'll move into estate planning and leaving a legacy. So let's get started. After last night, I'm not used to standing for 2 hours, so I asked Don if I could have a stool, and he says, yes, we have one for you. So I'm going to take advantage of that today. Proverbs chapter 27 says, know well the condition of your flocks, and pay attention to your herds. So the analogy there for us today is, know well the condition of your savings accounts, and pay attention to your investments. For riches are not forever, nor does a crown endure to all generations. So if your last name is Rockefeller, a day will come where your great-great-great-great-great-grandchild may not have money. When the grass disappears, the new growth is seen, and the herbs of the mountains are gathered in. The lambs will be for your clothing, and the goats will bring the price of a field. And there will be goat's milk enough for your food, for the food of your household and sustenance for your maidens. So pay attention to your flocks. Pay attention to your herds. Carefully manage what you've been entrusted with. Living within our means actually means having a budget. We're going to talk about that. Proverbs chapter 13. Poverty and shame will come to him who neglects discipline. And I would say having a budget. But he who regards reproof will be honored. And I do think this applies to budgeting and managing our money, having self-discipline. There is precious treasure and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man swallows it up. So it's about being a good steward, managing what we are entrusted with wisely. Hebrews chapter 12. All discipline, budgets, self-discipline, all discipline for the moment seems not to be joyful. You mean I have to cut expenses? Maybe it's not so joyful. But sorrowful. I have to give up my new Cadillac? Yet to those who have been trained by it, it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness. I do think this applies to our financial stewardship as well as to discipline in general. So we need to establish a reasonable, workable budget. Bouge, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, is a small leather purse. The importance of budgeting. Do you know how much you spend on food, clothing, and shelter each year? Planning our expenses prior to each month is important. So the idea, the concept of budget comes from that, I think it's a French word, I'm not sure, bouge, which means a small leather purse where you kept your money. And so from that word came the root of that was budget. But when you think about budgeting, do we know what we're spending on various aspects of our income, where it's going? And do we plan our expenses ahead of time? That's really important. Not plan our expenses today. Oh, yeah, I got to pay the rent today. We should know that we have to pay the rent today last month, and we are planning for this month of April. And now we need to be planning for the month of May, when rent is due, when we're going to pay our utility bills, when the income comes in, when it goes out, and where it goes. These are really important things. We have to be intentional, purposeful about our spending and planning. You know, they say about planning, if you don't have a plan, any road will lead you there, right? So what we need to do is be intentional about our finances and plan. Be purposeful. Living within our means means having a budget. The plans of the diligent lead surely to advantage, but everyone who is hasty comes surely to poverty. So living within our means having self-discipline and self-control to live by our budgets and our planning. And you notice in Proverbs 21 there the word diligent. We talked about some of these principles last night, didn't we? Diligence and humility and stewardship and all of these things are, that's why I spent last night talking about principles, because as I mentioned, most success comes from having the heart in the right place first. If we have these principles in our hearts and we're committed to budgeting, to living within our means, spending less than we earn, if we're committed to that from the heart, we're going to succeed. And what we're going to do this morning is, the nerd part of all this, which is what I enjoy, but really it all starts with where's your heart? And are you willing to commit to this? To be content, to really understand what it means to be content, and to work hard, and be humble about things, not let pride take over. Pride can be a huge budget buster. I mean, if you have to keep up with the Joneses, right? Or the Smiths, or whoever's next door. But really, God has called us to be faithful to Him and to live according to His principles. So it's important that we start by tracking all of our spending. And I would suggest that we do that for 2 months. And at the end of each month, add up your spending in each category and then readjust your budget. So what I'm talking about here is the fact that, number one, it's important to track your spending and establish categories. We're going to talk about that too, as far as categories. See, I think I'm just booming out there, and apparently I'm not talking loud enough. It's the accountant in me, I guess. Sorry. So we're going to track our spending. Now, what we do in our household is we have the checkbook register. Who still has a checkbook register? Bless you, bless you. So I know in this modern age of technology, this kind of goes against the grain, but in some way, we need to track, what did we spend on gasoline last month? What did we spend on food last month? What did we spend on restaurants and eating out last month? What was our utility costs? What was our transportation costs? What did we spend on our home, maintaining our home last month? What did we pay on debt last month? What did we save? How did we actually do? If we earned $100 last month and we spent $110, that's not so good. We need to think about that and relook at our budget. So it all starts with having a budget. And in order to really set up a budget, we need to know what costs need to be in all of these different categories, don't we? So let's track our spending for 2 months. This sounds so hard, but it's not. It's not. You just have to be intentional about it. In fact, if there's any other nerds here, it's really fun, because then you can put it all into a spreadsheet, and look at it and do what-if scenarios. It's so much fun. But those of you who are not nerds, who think, oh, this is so boring, find somebody that is a nerd that can help you with it. Nerds unite. And then we're going to do a monthly budget, and we're going to plan our budget a month in advance. Why? Because next month has stuff in it that may be unusual spending that's come. Oh, property taxes. I forgot about that. And that's $1,000 or $2,000, and that's coming up in whatever month it is. See how important it is? Yeah. Exactly. Exactly right. And we look at that every single month. And we look at what's coming down the road here that we need to be planning for. Yeah. That's right. In fact, Brother Don, God comes first. And where is that passage about first fruits? I think it's Proverbs 3 where it says, give to the Lord your first fruits, not your last fruits, not the overly ripe fruits, but the first fruits, your best. God comes first. And every dollar has a name. You've probably heard that said before too. Every dollar has a name. Your dollars are your little financial soldiers. You're going to line up your little army a month in advance, and on the first day of the month, you're going to send out your soldiers to do your conquest of that month's budget. Holy cow, I really am a nerd, aren't I? I'm honest with you, I am a nerd, but it's funny when you think about it that way because you're in control. You're the commander of your army, aren't you? We're taking control of our finances. And I would say, you've probably heard this, maybe your grandparents told you this, years ago. Live below your income. Spend less than you earn. It's important to save. Establish a savings plan. Limit your lifestyle. And be content. And to start budgeting, you list your income, then you list all your expenses. And then try to create categories that make sense to you. One of our categories isn't just food or utilities. We have a category called Home Depot. Isn't that funny? We have another one called Walmart. And this little thing, you can see all the little holes in it. It's been stuck on our little push pins all throughout the years. After we first got married, that was on our little corkboard thing, and then it got on the fridge, and it's been on our fridge for 40-some years now. But it's this concept of just, you're doing this together as a couple, those of you who are married. And it's all one pot. There's not his, there's not hers. This is a great opportunity for me to talk about, there should not be hubby's checkbook and wifey's checkbook. That's not God's way. And if you have a small business, whatever, that kind of stuff, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the two have become one flesh. The two are one flesh, and that means you have one checking account or one account that you pay your bills out of, and there's total transparency in that. And it's something that you do together. Your income is one household income. Your expenses are one household expenses. I like to kid Laura, I'll say, what's mine is yours, and what's yours is yours. She hates it when I say that. So what are some reasons for failed budgets? Well, the bread and water fear. I'm going to be living on bread and water for the rest of my life, and then my life will be over and I'll die. Well, it's really not that bad. In fact, there's freedom in this. Once you have a budget, then you start feeling good about yourself and feeling confident about yourself. It's actually just the opposite of this. This next one, budgeting is child abuse, was brought to my attention when we had children at home by one of our children. Dad, this budget, it's child abuse. This wasn't Julie. But I will say, as her daddy, it actually wasn't Julie. But she might have been thinking it. Dad, it's child abuse. No, it's not. It's actually not at all. It's about learning principles from God's Word, about living within our means, and so that. And another false idea in our world today is you deserve the best life has to offer. You deserve to go on a vacation to Paris, and you deserve, a brand new car. Well, actually, that's not true at all. What we deserve is for us to be faithful to God and for Him to bless us with food, clothing, and shelter. Beyond that, we really don't need those things. And when it really gets down to it, it's about being faithful to God. That's where real joy comes from, isn't it? Happiness is not found in material things. We see that over and over and over when we see what happens in Hollywood, people that, commit suicide and drug overdose and all that. And the fourth one is, if at first you don't succeed, forget it. And some people give up. And I'm here to tell you, don't give up. Do not grow weary in doing good. So these are some things that we need to overcome. All of these are just false sayings that are not true. And we need to just rise above this. Any comments? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's great, Derek. It's all about consistency, and habits is all about establishing your budget, figuring out what your habit needs to be, and then doing it every single day. And over time, we're trained and we become mature in these areas, and that helps us to be more successful and fruitful. But having good habits, good spending habits is so important. Yeah. Yeah, and there's a crisis, and now what do we do, kind of thing. And we're going to talk about having an emergency fund for when these sorts of things come up, and then we'll talk about in our emergency fund, where do we keep that? I mean, what should it look like? But I like the idea of having worst case scenario. Being conservative in your budgeting, that's a great comment. Being careful to not be overly optimistic. Well, I know we've spent, $500 on food for the last 3 months, but this month we're only going to spend $200 on food, because then we'll have a budget that's in balance. Let's go do it. And then the month goes by and we spent $600 on food. So, all right, this is Earl. He's doing a lot of housework here. I don't know if you've ever seen the Pickles cartoons. This is Earl and Opal. Earl, say hello. Hello. Earl is vacuuming. Now he's doing laundry. Now he's ironing, and Opal says, okay, what did you buy and how much did you spend? She knows he's in trouble. Let's look at a personal budgeting example here. Here's a sample budget, just the concept here. And I do want to mention to you that there is a free budgeting tool at Ramsey Solutions. It's everydollar.com. This one's great. It's free, and it's really a nice, easy budget tool that you can use to your advantage. And it does all the math for you. So I would encourage you to consider that. But a simple budget just starts with your income. That's the top line. You need to determine your monthly income. And there's various ways to do that. If you're paid every 2 weeks, well, take your 2 weeks times 26, divide by 12, right? And then you'll have a monthly income. If you're paid once a month, that's easy. Put that monthly amount in there. If you're paid weekly, well, you can do it 4 times. That's fine. Or if you want to be really nerdy, you can do, weekly times 52 divided by 12 if you want. But there's various ways, but it's important that you try to have a monthly budget. Start with monthly income. Then determine what are your monthly expenses. And this is why I say Track your expenses for 2 months, not just 1 month, but at least 2 months, maybe even 3, to figure out what are you spending right now. And while you're tracking it, don't try to kid yourself and hold back on some spending just because you know you're tracking it. Don't get mental with yourself. Just do what you normally do and track it. And then after this 2-month period, you'll have a pretty good sense of what are you spending your, or if you want to go back the last 2 months, if you have records, do that and go back through your checkbook. And then you can determine from that, how are you doing? Are you saving or are you spending more than you should be? Here's some interesting information about income in the United States. This is 2023 data from the U.S. Census Bureau. And it kind of shows what average income is by, what percentage of the country, various percentages. So, like if you're making 25 grand, that's about 14%. This is cumulative as you go down through these categories. But about 30% of America is around 50 grand. About half of America is right around 75,000 on household income. And then it goes up from there. And there's a difference, of course, between average and median. I really like to use median numbers. It's a more accurate way of looking at things because median is where things are clustered. If you have somebody that's making $2 billion, he's going to, when you calculate the average, it's really going to distort things, isn't it? Whereas if you have like a grouping of where people fall and you calculate a median, that's much more accurate, gives you a better picture of things. Yeah, half of America is right around 75,000. And the median, here it says 80,610. And so I thought that would be interesting to share. So here's a monthly budget on the left here. Monthly income of $100, and you can see here are the various categories that are in this person's budget. $10 for giving, that's not a coincidence that that's 10%. That's the tithe. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Our mortgage payment, transportation, food, utilities. And food can be restaurants and groceries. That's food. If you want to break it out into restaurants and groceries, I would encourage you to do that. And then you'll be surprised at maybe the restaurant part of your budget. Or maybe not. Utilities would be, electricity, gas, all of those things. Insurance costs, medical expenses, your debt payments, and then savings. So in this example here, this budget, they're saving about $5 and doing pretty well. And if you don't have this little thing on the right here is if you have an uneven income stream, I talked about that a minute ago, but here are some suggestions. Try to track your income over a longer period and then calculate an average. If you're on a commission and your commissions come sporadically, well, just track it over like a quarter or maybe even 6 months and then divide by 3 or divide by 6. That'll give you an average for monthly. Possibly, if that doesn't work for you, use your W-2 income from your filing of your taxes. Divide by 12. It's important to put together a monthly budget in order to provide a guideline for monthly or even weekly spending. When the seasonal or cyclical income comes in, it's important to spread it out over the spending periods evenly. And this is where self-discipline comes in. So let's look at an upside-down budget. This is the summary at the top. So we have income in this example here of $54,000 a year. On the left is the monthly income, which is this person is being paid twice a month, $2,250. So the monthly income is $4,500. Over to the right, shaded in right, is the annual income is $54,000. Oh yeah, you can see that okay. This is the annual from from the monthly categories. And so in this household income, their annual income is $54,000. That's the good news. The bad news is their annual expenses is $68,394. Oh my goodness, what in the world's going on? Well, to find out, you need to start tracking expenses for 2 months and figure out where it's all going. But on a monthly basis, their expenses exceed their income by almost $1,200. So let's take a look at that and see where they're spending their money by categories. So the first area is taxes. And federal withholding, they're married, state withholding, Social Security. So their taxes is right around 14%. $639 a month is going for taxes. This is not sales tax. This is not property tax. This is just based on income. So it's federal tax, state tax, and if there were city, you'd put that in, and FICA. So that's about 14%. And over to the right, these are guidelines that I've kind of put together over the years. Some of this guidelines are suggestions. Some of Dave Ramsey's materials give guidelines, just to kind of give you a comparison to see how you're doing against kind of what a normal budget would have. So the tax part of this seems to be all right. It's 15 to 40% would be the guideline, so it's okay. And then over to the far right are the annual expenses you're seeing there, like the $7,600. Giving for tithing is at 10%. We have also in our giving Christmas, birthdays, and other. So our giving in total is $661 in this budget, or about 15%. And in the guideline, that's from 10 to 15%, so it's on the high side. Emergency fund, there is no emergency fund here. So there's a big red flag there. Their 401k spending, like this person is signed up for 401k, but they're only taking out 1%. And that's not good enough. We got to do better than that. So the 401k is too low. There's no emergency fund. And you can see here their savings and investments is 1%, should be 5 to 10, and I would encourage you to go higher than that. 15% would be great if you could do that. We'll talk about that later. Housing costs, they have a mortgage payment, real estate taxes, repairs, renter's insurance, homeowner insurance, other. So their housing is around 30%. That's not bad. Yeah, go ahead. No. Right, and same thing. Right, and then what happens then is you get a little bit better of a refund. And then when we get that refund, my advice is to tithe off that. So that's how I solve that problem. But no, I'm not really going to touch on that. Good question, though. But if anyone wants to talk about that, go see Phil and Kim. But see here, housing is not really the problem in this budget, is it? Because it's around 30%, and the guideline is 25 to 35. And I would encourage you, if you buy a home and are going to, take on debt for that, don't let the mortgage payment and the other costs, your property taxes and whatnot, exceed more than 30 to 35% of your income. That is so important. Don't overbuy. Don't buy too much house that you can't afford, because you'll be miserable. You'll be in this really nice house. You'll be staring at the four walls with no money to do anything else with. So I would caution you, don't do that. Here are utility bills, electricity, sewer and water, gas, phone, trash removal, cable TV, computer online. And here we can see that they're at 11%, which is a little over the, a little kind of high. food costs. They like to eat out. They're spending $500 on groceries, but they're spending $400 on restaurants each month. So I guess they're going to Texas Roadhouse and Olive Garden and Ruth's Crisp or whatever that is. I've never been there. Don't get Culver's? Don't forget Culver's. Amen. You know, you can buy a kid's meal even if you're a senior. And you get your little ice cream after, too. It's all part of the deal. We go to Costco. We got a Costco membership. This is so funny. And they advertise, buy a Costco membership because you'll save so much money on what you buy. We don't go there to buy anything. We go there to have lunch. $1.50 for their jumbo beef hot dogs. That's so funny. We had lunch there the other day for $10, didn't we, honey? Yeah. And then transportation costs are a little high here. Look at that car payment. So you know I'm going to talk about that in a minute. That car payment's $500 a month, and it's now in that category. They're high, aren't they? Then there's medical costs. Now you don't have to get this granular if this is like looking like this is overwhelming for you. Don't forget, I'm the nerd. I love all these details, but you don't have to get this detailed if that just doesn't work for you. What I would encourage you to do is create categories that are meaningful to you, that work for you, areas that you spend your money on that make sense to you. These make sense to me because they cover every possible category you can think of. But this may not be your solution, but this is, this is what I've done. So, and then personal costs, and then recreation. They're spending, $150 on recreation. And then they have debt. And look at their debt. They have their mortgage payment, they have their car loan, student loans, credit card payments. And so they're spending, $1,900 a month, including all of this on debt. So they're not doing so well here, are they? So what are some ideas that we can possibly remove from our budget? Here are some suggestions for this family. If you have a gym membership, cancel the gym membership. Start walking. If you want to run, try running. I'm okay with walking. Retail memberships like Costco, Sam's Club. Now, if you go to Costco to buy their hot dog, keep the Costco. But other than that, dump Costco. Stop buying bottled water. There's tap water. It's just as clean. And even in your fridge, a lot of fridges have filtered water. Look at your insurance. You may have, rental car insurance already in your policy and you just don't need it. Gift wrapping charges, you can wrap gifts yourself. Magazine subscriptions, auto club memberships, cable TV. Cable TV is not a need, it's a want. And you can get tableautv.com for free. And you can still get major channels. So there's a big savings there. Late fees, pay your bills on time. Streaming services, Netflix and Hulu and all that. Check bags when flying. Food delivery charges. New books. Landline phones. Anybody still have a landline phone? Not very many. There are some, but that's an option. Just eliminate it and have your cell phone. When you're buying medicines, buy the generic acetaminophen instead of buying the Tylenol. There's a big savings there. It's the same thing. It's acetaminophen. Manicures, I don't have any problem with this one. Smoking, drinking alcohol, you shouldn't be doing that anyway. Cleaning products, car washes, paper towels, and premium gas. All suggestions here to possibly remove. So review your expenses each month in the categories, and then look for ways to reduce or eliminate expenses. Some common areas to focus on are lifestyle-related, entertainment. Find other creative ways to have fun without spending a lot of money. You can go on picnics, you can go on walks, you can go hiking. There's all kinds of creative things you can do to not have to spend a lot of money. Examine your Christmas giving, your birthday giving, and live within your means. You don't have to spend a lot of money on birthdays and Christmas. You can still spend money on Christmas and birthdays, but it doesn't have to be excessive. Look at your cell phone expenses, cable TV expenses, transportation expenses. Sell the new truck. If you just bought the new truck, sell it. Get out from underneath it. And buy some dependable transportation that meets your needs. I just want to talk about cell phones for a minute. 121, the average cell phone bill in the United States is around $120 to $150 a month. That's crazy. $120 to $160 a month. These figures indicate a range of average monthly costs. And Laura and I found that Pure Talk is an option for you to consider. We spend $63 a month for Pure Talk. It's unlimited, it's 2 lines, 2 cell phones, unlimited text and talk. And Pure Talk is owned by veterans. I love that. It's veteran owned, it's America first, and it's $63 a month. And I think there's another 1 or 2 out there similar to this, but I would encourage you, if you're spending $120 a month on cell phone, here's a great opportunity for you. In grocery shopping, look for stores offering goods on sale. Buy staples based on price. Look for sales on other items. Shop when things are in season. They're usually priced lower. Reduce or eliminate snack items like potato chips. You really can survive without potato chips. I know it's hard to think that, but it's true. Candy bars like Snicker bars, that kind of thing. You can live without them. Sometimes the generic brand is just as good as the name brand items. Review your insurance costs. Review your life insurance. Make sure that you have term life insurance and not whole life policies. That's a whole nother discussion for another day. But universal life and whole life, they're nothing more than combining investing with insurance. You don't need to do that. Buy insurance and then invest. They're separate things. And you'll avoid paying tons of commissions. Reduce spending on clothing. Don't buy new clothing. Instead, buy new-to-you clothing. Shop for sales. You can get great clothing not having to shop at the fancy stores. But they are clean, they're neat, and they're a lot less expensive. Finally, consider increasing your income with a temporary part-time job if needed. So here's this person's spending reduction plan that on the example I gave you earlier. This is what they did. They took down entertainment by $150 a month. They sold the truck. That eliminated their $500 a month payment. They began paying off credit cards. They eliminated restaurants because you got to realize this is a serious budget issue here. They're behind on their budget. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. 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 Isn't that something? It's all about the marketing, and you're going to pay more for the marketing? I mean, what a waste of money. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. 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 It's still tempting. If I go into CVS and I got to get some Tylenol, and then I'll see the CVS acetaminophen, I'll still think, well, maybe I'm being more of a good guy buying the brand, but it makes no difference whatsoever. Acetaminophen is acetaminophen, So, yeah, sold the truck, began paying off their debt, eliminated their restaurants, reduced their Christmas spending and birthdays. They didn't eliminate it, but they reduced it. They reduced their cell phone expense. They got smart and went with Pure Talk. reduced, eliminated cable TV. And look here at the 401k. See how it's a negative there? They increased their 401k at work up to 3%. That's a negative number on here, isn't it? So they eliminated a bunch of things, but then they actually increased their 401k spending. And then they eliminated haircut expense. And so they took out $1,300 worth of expenses against a shortfall of $1,200. So now they're actually ahead on their budget, $128. So let's look at their budget now. Their income is the same. It's still $4,500 a month, but look at the categories now. Giving is 11.9% instead of whatever it was, 14 or something before. Savings now is 6% from like 0. Housing costs are still about the same. Transportation is much less. Food is much less. Lifestyle is much less. Medical and health didn't change at all. Taxes didn't change at all. And debt, I don't remember, might have gone up a little bit. But now look, they're in budget. I mean, they're balanced. So this is a wonderful thing. Here's the categories. Here's where they actually went through and made changes. So taxes are the same. You'll notice their giving is still the same for the tithe. Didn't change at all. But Christmas and birthdays, they just cut back a little bit. They now have in their savings and investment, retirement, 3% instead of 1%, and they are now investing $128 a month. Their housing costs are about the same. Their utilities, I believe, are about the same, except for the phone expense. The phone expense is now $62. They went, with Pure Talk there. Cable TV, they eliminated cable, and they bought that Tableau TV, and are just looking at you have a basic television service now. And groceries, they eliminated their restaurant spending. Groceries are the same. Car payment, 0. They sold the truck. So they made some pretty good changes here. Medical costs about the same. They eliminated haircuts. Well, they reduced, no, that's 0. They eliminated haircuts. And entertainment, they're going to find other ways to have entertainment without spending a lot of money. And so they're making debt payments, but they are now in balance. So now we're going to take a break, and I'm going to set up my computer here so that when we get into some other things too, we can do some what-if scenarios. So I do have a budget file too, if you want to talk about that. What I'm hoping to do also is when we get into retirement planning, I have another financial model for that we'll talk about, where we can do all kinds of what-if scenarios and have some fun with that. So let's take about 20 minutes or so, and we'll try to be back at 1:15. How are the donuts? Yeah, they look pretty good. Just another minute or so about budgeting tips. This is from another source that I got. I thought I'd share a little bit of this. Every month, creating a zero-based budget. We've talked about that a month in advance. This is something that you should do together if you're married as a couple. Don't, all of you nerds out there, don't do the budget and then tell your spouse, here's the budget, congratulations. It doesn't work that way. You need to do it together. And if you're not really excited about spreadsheets and budgeting, you just got to hang in there. And if you're overly excited about budgets and spreadsheets, you got to back off a little bit. And the two of you together got to sit down, do your budget in advance every month. And when you're budgeting, budget the most important things first and have priority in your budgeting. Yeah, we're going to talk about paying off debt. Don't be afraid to trim your budget where needed. And like Laura had suggested, make a schedule for routine bills and the timing of unusual bills and expenses that come up so that you know when they're coming and you can plan for it. Track your progress. It's important to, once you've established your budget, see how you're doing and compare and track it and celebrate if you're doing well against your budget. You should be proud of yourself. Cut up your credit cards. We spent a lot of time last night talking about debt, and I gave you 17 reasons for getting out of debt, not having debt. God doesn't talk anywhere in the Bible about debt in a favorable way. It's always a burden or slavery or in a negative way. Purpose or be intentional about getting out of debt. Cut up your credit cards. Use cash where you overspend. And I think if we do that, that helps us to kind of feel the pain of where we're overspending. And it's easy to overspend when you use a credit card. You don't really feel the pain right away. But if you're paying cash for those things, you'll feel it. Quit the comparisons. There's a verse in 2 Corinthians chapter 10 where it says when we compare ourselves with ourselves, it's foolish to do that. Don't compare your budget to anybody else's, or try to keep up with the Joneses or anything like that. Just it's not important. What is important is that we're faithful to God and following in His ways. And the last tip on here was just to give yourself a little bit of grace, slack. It's not perfect. You're not going to do this perfectly. You're going to make mistakes, but that's okay. We just keep moving and improving as we go and being consistent. So I'd like to talk about the debt snowball or accelerating debt payments. This is a concept I'd like to share with you. Many of you may already know this, but when we're paying off debt, here's an option to consider in getting out of debt. Here's a way to do it. So here's a debt snowball example. You start with your MasterCard bill, and you'll see here that the MasterCard bill is only $50 a month, but look at the interest rate. It's the highest interest rate of all your credit cards, isn't it? 21%. And you can see the balance is around $2,000. And so what we're going to do is with that minimum payment of $50, we're going to add another $50 to that. So we're going to pay $100 a month on this credit card while paying the minimum payments on the other credit cards. And so by doing that, we're actually going to pay off that credit card in 19.8 months versus 39.5 months. So we're going to pay off that credit card in about 20 months of savings. And then what happens is once we've done that, we now have $100. It's now been freed up that we have stopped paying, the MasterCard, master of our finances, and now we're going to discover ways to pay off the Discover card. We're going to take that $100. We're now going to add it to the Discover Card payment. So our Discover Card payment's going to now go from $75 up to $175. We're going to accelerate paying off that Discover Card by 5 months. So from 11 months down to 5 months. And then we now have $175 that we have freed up in our budget to now tackle the next credit card. And so that Visa card, we're going to destroy that Visa balance of $4,200. We're going to accelerate it by $175. And so from $25 up to $200 a month. And so look at the acceleration of this thing. We're accelerating paying off that credit card by 18 months. So isn't that wonderful? And so now we have freed up $200 a month on our budget. And we can now attack our mortgage with that money that we've saved. And in this example, I had it going from the highest interest rate down to the lowest interest rate. And also you want to combine interest rate, biggest effect, with lowest monthly payment, and try to tackle those first, because then you'll start getting some quick wins and you'll feel good about it, and that'll help you to gain some momentum in paying off your debt. It's all about being consistent and being encouraged and not giving up. So in this example, we have reduced the overall debt to $54,000. All of that was paid off. Instead of about 400 months, now we paid it all off in 140 months. So we saved about 12 years. And, 21 years, excuse me. It went from 33 years down to 12 years. So the savings, we accelerated that by 21 years. And that is a big amount of savings. So, and then after paying off the debt, be intentional about staying out of debt. You don't ever want to go back. And debt is just, it's a trap, and it's harmful, and it holds us back from what we can do for the Lord. If we're debt-free, think about what you could do for the Lord if you were debt-free. Those of you who are debt-free, look at, what it took to get there and how it feels now. And being debt-free, you don't ever want to go back. So instead of using a credit card, it's time for plastic surgery and get a debit card. You can do virtually the same thing with a debit card as you can with a credit card. A debit card, you immediately feel the pain when you buy that item. It's right then and there. In fact, if you look at your bank account that night, you'll see it's already been taken out of your checking account. Good. I'm glad. We want to know what we're spending and know right away and feel the pain and get it over with. And doing it right up front. Credit cards gives you this illusion so that you get the bill next month and it's, now I got this big balance. We don't want to live that way. We want to, and when I say pay cash for everything, it's like use your debit card. Any comments? Yes.
How do you feel about building up your credit?
Yeah, a lot of people want to, and I'm only joking, they want to worship at the altar of FICO. I've heard that term used before. FICO is meaningless. I'm sorry, that's just how I feel about it. There's no status or prestige in having a high FICO score. Did I just say that out loud? There's no status or prestige in a FICO score. All that means is, people are wanting to loan you money and you're going to pay them interest. So the very first question that I'm asked immediately before I finish the sentence is, well, how can you buy a house? What in the world? Are you crazy? You'll never be able to, qualify for a mortgage. Well, I've got news for you. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. If you are having consistency in paying your utility bills each month, if you've been consistent, if you've had other expenses, and you have a proven record of being consistent and you have a steady income, you can qualify for a mortgage. Now, not every bank may do that, but you got to keep looking. You will find a bank that is willing to loan you money for a mortgage. Should we borrow money to buy a house? How else are you going to do it? Anybody going to walk in and plunk down, $400,000, $500,000? It's just not practical. We just can't do that. So mortgage debt is just a fact of life, in my opinion. But everything else is discretionary spending. And even buying cars and larger ticket items. You can save, be patient. Remember, patience is one of the fruits of the Spirit, isn't it? And then during the time that you're saving for that item, you're looking forward to it. You now have the joy of looking forward to having that item. And then when you pay cash and buy that item, it really is gratifying because you've done it the right way. Great question. Really amazing. She's my daughter. You probably all know that. Yes, ma'am. Good. Yeah. Because it gives you hope and it gives you encouragement. I think that's a wonderful idea. You can visually see right in front of you, here's the goal. Here's what we're doing, and we're doing this together. And again, marriages that last love one another, we encourage one another, and we work together as a couple. And in most relationships, there's going to be a nerd and there's going to be a free spirit. And if you really love one another, you'll blend. And we read in Genesis that the two become one flesh. That means free spirits get a little nerdy over time. And nerds get a little more free-spirited over time. And together, it's really a beautiful thing. And I think that's a great example about having a visual, because it's encouraging. And we want to have hope. We want to have encouragement as we build to getting out of debt. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they're guaranteed. Yeah, there's so many fraudulent scams out there. Our bank is very diligent about that, and we can dispute charges, and we had that happen where there was a charge out in California for some computer supplies. We never wanted that. We never ordered that. And so we worked with our bank. We went in and we just signed a form, and then they disputed it, and we never had to pay it. And then Richard gets a text message. Richard! Yeah, that's a wonderful point. The other thing I want to mention too, along with that, hang on, Tim, 1 second. The other thing I just want to mention is with the credit bureaus, there's the 3 major credit bureaus. I would encourage you, if you're not actively getting a mortgage right now, if you're just like day to day right now, Go in and freeze those, all three of them. Go in and freeze them. And you can do it, I think even online you can go in and do it. And then when somebody tries to commit identity theft and tries to take out a loan in your name, they'll run into that brick wall because you have frozen on your credit so that they can't complete that. And so that's a real saver there. Well, Experian, TransUnion, and the other guy, Equifax, you just go on and you freeze your account so that you yeah, because you might, when you're buying a home or something, you're going to need to unfreeze it. And so that's really important. Thank you for mentioning that. Tim? Yeah. Yeah. Great comment, Tim. Thank you. Anything else? Yeah. Right. That's right. Yeah, me too. Because I'm not going to be borrowing any money ever, so. Yeah. Anyone else? All right. Okay, let's talk about giving and tithing. Proverbs chapter 3. This is what we were talking about earlier. Honor the Lord from your wealth and from the first of all your produce, so that your barns will be filled with plenty and your vats will overflow with new wine. So give to God first. Make him first in your lives financially. And as a result of that, you will have plenty. You'll have more than you'll know what to do with. Isn't that interesting? Kind of goes against common sense in a way. But God's ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. And he just wants us to be faithful. Will a man rob God? Yet you are robbing me. But you say, how have we robbed you? In tithes and offerings. You are cursed with a curse, for you are robbing me, the whole nation of you. Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, so that there may be food in my house, and test me now in this, says the Lord of heaven, the Lord of hosts. If I will not open for you the windows of heaven and pour out for you a blessing until it overflows. If we're faithful to God, he will bless us. He will take care of our needs. And so, calculating the tithe, this is the Jack Robbins version of calculating your tithe. In my experience, I believe that we are to tithe off of everything we're given. And so, when I read in Luke chapter 20, they're asking Jesus about should we pay taxes or not. And they say, is it lawful for us to pay taxes to Caesar or not? But he detected their trick here. They're just trying to, find a way to trick him. And he said to them, show me a denarius. Whose likeness and inscription does it have? And they said, Caesar's. And he said to them, then render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. So when I read that, one thing I think of is that taxes, and in particular federal income taxes, are something we really don't have any control over. It's not discretionary in any way. We don't have any choice in paying our federal income tax. So I subtract the federal income tax withholding from my income in calculating the tithe. So less the taxes. So if you have an income each month of $4,500, I subtract the federal income tax withholding, and I have a net income to tithe from, and that's what I tithe. Now, you may ask, well, what about state income tax? What about city income tax? What about sales tax? What about property tax? What about tax or whatever? No, I'm only talking about federal income tax. This example that I read in Scripture is about Caesar. Caesar was the head of their government. And you can find all kinds of ways to reduce your tithe. And I would encourage you not to do that. But over the years, we have subtracted the federal income tax withholding in calculating our tithe. And then when you do your tax return and you get a refund, guess what? You better tithe off that refund, right? I mean, it's the right thing to do. But this is just my encouragement to you, my example, my suggestion. Now, what you could do is give tithe off the gross. And I think that would be great, because really, at the end of the day, if you did that in this example, it'd be $450, or it'd be 12% of the $3,860. And can you outgive God? It's just not possible to outgive God. So even if you just do it off gross, that would probably be even better. And so that would be my encouragement to you. Yes. Right. Right. That's right. Because God comes first. If we get a raise at work, don't forget God. We need to calculate our tithe off of the new income, because God's blessing you. And then Proverbs 11, I shared this last night, but this is about giving to others. I want to read it again because it's one of my favorite passages in all of Scripture. There is one who scatters, in other words, who is generous. There is one who scatters and yet increases all the more. Well, how can that be? If we're giving away to others, how can we increase all the more? That's how God works. And there is one who withholds, who's greedy, what is justly due, and yet it results only in want. The generous man will be prosperous, and he who waters will himself be watered. He who withholds grain, the people will curse him, but blessing will be on the head of him who sells it. He who diligently seeks good seeks favor, but he who seeks evil, evil will come to him. He who trusts in his riches will fall, but who trusts in God will not fall. You can see that, can't you, in that? But the righteous will flourish like the green leaf. We should be giving to others. So we tithe, we give to others. This is all part of our giving and part of our budgeting. What I'd like to do now is to share with you 7 steps to work towards financial wealth. This comes from Dave Ramsey. Probably most of you have seen this, but I'd like to just talk about the principle here, the ideas, and share with you some thoughts about this. I think the order of things is right. I think initially, your first priority is to establish an emergency fund. It's a temporary emergency fund. It's a beginner, baby step emergency fund. It's a $1,000 emergency fund to get you started. What will this $1,000 do? It will cover emergencies, right? The unforeseen, the unexpected. Not in our budget. Oh, the roof is leaking. Oh, the fridge went out. There's a plumbing leak. Oh, the engine light went on the car again. Well, there's your emergency fund. That's what this is for. Start with carving out your emergency fund. That's the very first thing to do. Then, after you've done that, start paying off debt. Do the debt snowball. Accelerate debt and pay off all of your debt except the mortgage. Use the debt snowball. Then, after that, the third step is to then complete your emergency fund. 3 to 6 months of expenses. I would encourage you to have 6 months of expenses, especially if you're younger and you're working where there's more risks of like maybe losing your job or something significant happening. 6 months of expenses. So in our example earlier, I guess $4,500 a month times 6 would be an adequate emergency fund for that family. And then fourth, start saving and investing. 15% of your household income. And if you can do more than that, that'd be great. But build this into your budget. If you can't do 15%, do what you can. It's all good. And eventually maybe you can work into that. Now there are ways to get to that 15%. One is through work. If you have a 401k plan that matches, that's a wonderful opportunity to invest. Max it out. That's all free money. So if they offer you a 3% match, and you got to put in 6% or 5% to get the 3%, do it. Do it. And that's a great, I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit, but it's a wonderful way of saving. And then max out your Roth IRA account investments. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. And then after the Roth IRAs, if you have conventional IRA account investments, max those out. So here are your steps within, step 4 here. 401k, Roth, conventional, and then follow an investment strategy. We're going to talk about that in a little while. After you've done that, then plan for college planning. This is where you can get in a 529 plan if you have children, educational savings account plans, or just setting up accounts for them for college if you don't want to do that. The 529 plans, that's in the tax code, those are tax benefits from having this type of college planning. Then after that, 401k is done, college planning is done, then pay off the mortgage, get it done, and pay it off. Then after that, after you're completely debt-free, your emergency fund is fully funded, you're still saving and investing, and you're on the right path, then build wealth and give generously. Give like nobody else. Just like Proverbs chapter 11. It is the blessing of the Lord that makes rich, and he adds no sorrow to it. Comments, suggestions, or questions? I really think this is a good approach in the order of things. I do think this makes sense in terms of priorities. So your emergency fund, let's talk about that for a few minutes. Here are some options. And this is more along the lines of when you're working on the 3 to 6 months, when you're getting into that step. There are considerations like what is the interest rate, how about liquidity, able to get to the money. An emergency fund is something you really need to be able to get to quickly when something happens. What are the risks involved in the type of accounts that you have? What is the custodial risk, coverage, interest rate risk, inflation? How complicated is it? And then how convenient is it? So a savings account is what most people think about when they're putting together an emergency fund. This column here. It's probably the worst thing you can do in terms of interest rate. I don't know if you've seen Bank of America's wonderful interest rates that they offer on savings accounts, but I think it's 0.0000001%. I would not encourage you to get a savings account. It's awful. As far as access to your money, it's the best. You can certainly get to it, but it'll be the same amount that's plunked in there. It won't grow. There's no risk, virtually no risk at all. Of course, FDIC insures up to $250,000 per account. There's always going to be interest rate risk, but it's very low with Bank of America or Mortgage Chase because they're not paying you interest anyway. It's very easy, very simple, and it's very, very convenient. But don't do it. Instead, I would encourage you to consider a high-yield savings account. A high-yield savings account is different than a savings account. A high-yield savings account, when you go into a bank, wherever you bank at, you tell them, I'm interested in seeing what your high-yield savings account is offering. Not your savings account, but your high-yield savings account. And examples of that are Ally Bank, PNC Bank, Fifth Third Bank. You probably have banks here locally that offer high-yield savings accounts. The interest rates are very good. Yes. Yes. No, I think those money market accounts are basically savings accounts, but I could be wrong on that. But what you want to make sure to specifically say is high-yield savings, meaning high-yield, high-interest type of savings account. And there may be money market accounts that do that. I'm not really sure. But we have a high-yield savings account. And our high-yield savings account is, well, it's now with the Fed dropping rates, it's in the 3 point something right now, which isn't bad, but it's better than 0.0000, nothing, nothing, nothing at Bank of America. Did I mention Bank of America? Yeah. So that's why I've shaded this in green, because I would like you, to consider, the high yield savings account. It's convenient. It's not that complicated. And another option, if you're really into this kind of stuff, Phil and Kim are probably doing this, have been for years, is a certificate of deposit, possibly, or ETF, exchange traded funds. The thing I like about certificate of deposit is the rate is better. Like instead of 3 point something, you can get 4 point something. So it's a better rate of return. It's still FDIC insured. The rate risk is zero because it's a locked-in rate. It's kind of an outdated option, but it's one that I like. And what we've been thinking about doing in our home is, because of the access to money, it's not a good option for liquidity, and that's the purpose of an emergency fund, is to have that liquidity. So what I would suggest you do is buy a 6-month CD, but buy 6 of them. And so every month you're buying another 6-month CD, so that in 6 months what you've done is now month one's CD is now matured. So now you have access to month one's CD. And so if you're just buying a 6-month CD every single month, you'll always have a CD maturing that month. That will be 1/6 of your emergency fund or even less. Because what we do is we have an emergency fund in our checking account for emergencies, but then we have also more of an emergency fund for access for liquidity, and we're going to probably be buying, CDs, 6-month CDs. So then a portion is in our checking, and then we take the other 6 portions and put them in CDs 1 month at a time. And so that's an option. Yes? I knew you were going to make a comment on this.
Well, I was just thinking about one of our situations is, we've been with the same bank for 30+ years, and their savings account actually account about that. And I was looking around, and I'm like, you're not very deep in the savings account. And so I called them, and they're like, oh, you shouldn't have been able to save that, change that for you. It's not automatic.
Oh, they're not going to tell you about it. Yeah, isn't that wonderful? And what you've done is you've added to your income stream. Isn't that wonderful? And they're not going to tell it to you, but they're going to have to be competitive and offer it if they want to keep your business. So, so CDs. And then for us really, really nerdy people, we like ETFs, exchange traded funds, and they're really like stock investments. But they're like buying stock in the government. So it's like government issued investments. It's not insured by the FDIC. Instead, it's insured by the SIPC, which is the Securities Investor Protection Corporation, but it's very similar to the FDIC, pretty much the same thing as far as the coverage. It's up to $250,000. It's a good option if you're familiar with working with brokerage accounts and you're waiting to wait 2 or 3 days. And then there's a couple there of suggestions for types of accounts. So those are emergency fund options. So let's take a little break here, maybe 15, 20 minutes or so, and then we'll get into investing and planning for retirement. This is the probably the funnest part of the workshop coming up here as far as investing and planning for retirement. And so let's start at 10 after. Okay? Let's take a break. Well, if you don't have any debt, you don't need a FICO score. I guess that's the point. If you don't have debt, if you paid off your debt, like say you pay off your credit cards, pay off your mortgage, and you don't borrow money, you don't need a FICO score. Pay it off. Well, It's easy for us to get all this stuff and then apply it, but part of our responsibility as parents is to train up our children, right? Train up your children, and when they grow old, they will not depart from it, and this is part of their training. And the other thing I want to mention is that, we all make mistakes, and Laura and I made our share. We are really good at making mistakes. We kind of capitalized on it for a few years, and so that's all part of the process. So don't be discouraged as you work on this journey of planning, budgeting, following, God's path for you for managing money and stewardship. There's going to be bumps along the road, and that's okay. It's all part of it. So let's talk about investing and planning. A faithful man will abound with blessings, but he who makes haste to be rich will not go unpunished. Don't buy lottery tickets. That's the first thing I think of. A man with an evil eye hastens after wealth. We shouldn't be concerned about that. Instead, we should be concerned about being faithful and following God's principles and how we manage our money and honor him. And don't forget, it's not our money anyway. It's all his. The plans of the diligent lead surely to advantage, but everyone who is hasty comes surely to poverty. Slow, steady, consistent investing is the key. Everyone who is hasty surely comes to poverty. The plans of the diligent lead to advantage. Diligent meaning be consistent. So here are some investing basics for you. Self-discipline, not income level, determines your ability to save money. That is so true. If your safe investments don't outpace inflation, you're really not making any headway, are you? We've got to outpace inflation. Don't try to time the stock market. Don't be a day trader or think like a day trader, because you're going to lose. It's about hanging in there for the long term and being steady in your investing. Although I will say right now is probably a good time to buy stock, but I don't know, last week was a good week, but don't even watch it, stock market, just, maybe once a year look at it. And I just say that to say, don't be concerned about the ups and downs day to day and week to week. Over time, the stock market has returned over the last 100 years or so, 10 to 12% on average. So don't be discouraged about the short-term stuff that happens. It's going to come and it's going to go, but over time, the stock market will be a great way to invest. Your investment should be part of an overall strategy designed to achieve your objectives. So investing is, step 4 in your way of building wealth. The growth of assets over the long term requires equity investments risk. So investing is going to require some risk. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. The most efficient portfolios that you can have are properly diversified within and among basic categories. So you look at the industries, and when one's going up, maybe the other one's going down, and you just want to try to balance things in your portfolio so that you minimize overall risk. Properly diversify. Investing should be as systematic as paying your monthly bills. When you're investing, you're paying yourself. You're investing in your family and in your future. It's just like paying the light bill. That's how you need to think about it. That's how we need to think about it. So let's talk a minute about investing and risk. These are like 5 basic categories of investing. The most conservative investing, of course, is in savings accounts and CDs, treasury bills. That's the most conservative you can get. Income category is IRA savings accounts, annuities, bonds, and conservative mutual funds. Generally, income category, when you're investing, typically it's around 60-40 between stock and bonds. Growth category is mutual funds, large cap equity. Large cap means larger companies. Typically 60% stock, 40% fixed income funds. Slightly higher risk. And as we're talking about these investment categories, as I'm going up the scale, the risk is going up. Higher the risk. Growth and income, it's a little riskier. 80% stock, 20% bonds. And then aggressive growth. These investments are higher risk, mostly stock, mostly NASDAQ type accounts, small, emerging, international stocks, high potential for investment return, but also high potential for loss. So which one do I pick? How do I invest, given all these various categories? Well, we need to keep in mind that the higher the category, the higher the risk. And so what we need to think about is, how do I blend this investing with my life and my financial situation? And really, one thing to think about is, how much risk am I willing to accept? So it's good to think about and talk about with your spouse about risk in investing. And generally speaking, when you're investing, the older you get, the lower your risk tolerance should be. The younger you are, the more energetic you are and more willing to take risk, because again, you're investing in the long term. So in your early years, I would suggest you blend your investing in all 5 categories. When you get into the 20 to 40-year-old group, I would scale back on the aggressive growth, because your focus now is with your children. You're beginning to establish, a 40529 plans for your kids, college planning, that sort of thing. And then when you're up 40s to 60s, I would start scaling that back into the, I would take out aggressive growth and focus more on the lower risk categories and some growth maybe. But then when you get to be my age, I wouldn't be investing in the higher risk categories, because it's more about protecting what you have and, just being more careful. And as far as this point in your life, you don't need to be aggressive. It's more about protecting what you have. Any comments about this? Yes. Right. And so because it's for your children or grandchildren. Yeah. Right. Yeah. 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 Good point. Yeah. Thank you. Also, I forgot, I was going to mention Bob Card couldn't be here today. His hip is bothering him, but he's watching at home. And so, Bob, hello. Love you, brother. Hope you're feeling better soon. Okay, the rule of 72. This basically is a rule that says how long, based on the interest rate, will it take you to double your investment. So if you take 72 divided by whatever the interest rate is, that tells you how many years it will take for you to double your investment. So if you're 19 years old and you invest $2,000 at 3%, if you take 72 divided by 3%, it's going to take 24 years for you to go from $2,000 up to $4,000. And you'll be 43 years old with $4,000. If you invest that $4,000 at 3%, 24 years later, at 67, you'll now have $8,000. Not bad. I mean, you didn't lose money, But you can do better. Here's the power of the interest rate. Let's say you invest, instead of 3%, you invest 6%. And you take $2,000 when you're 19 years old. So if you divide 72 by 6, it says you're going to double your money every 12 years. And so at 19 years old, 12 years later, you'll be 31, not 43, and you'll have $4,000. And if you take that $4,000 and invest that, at 43 years old, you'll have 8. And if you invest that 8,000, at 55, you'll have 16,000. And if you invest that 16,000 by 67, you'll now have $32,000. So we've gone from a 3% to a 6%. We've gone from 8,000 to 32,000. So here's my trick question. What if we invest $2,000 at 19 years old at 12%? What will we have when we're 67 years old? Okay, that's a good guess. Don't you think it'd be 64,000? Some people might, but you're a lot closer. Yeah, this is the whole point of this chart is to show you how important interest rates are. Any other guesses? 2 million? Oh, stop it. $512,000. Can you believe that? Why? Well, 72 divided by 12 is every 6 years. So, my goodness, you're at $500,000. So see how important the interest rate is when you're investing? It's really important. And that's the point of this chart. So, shop around and be careful with your investing. You want to maximize, you want to minimize the risk and maximize the return. And they go against each other, but that's where you have to make decisions on what you think you can accept with risk. Here is a chart that shows the power of consistency in investing. And on the left here, we have $100 at 10%. This is a 21-year-old. Can you guys see this okay? Can you see the numbers okay? Okay. A 21-year-old is investing $100 a month, and he invests for 46 years, and he retires at 67. That $100 a month will grow to $1.2 million. Isn't that amazing? A 19-year-old, a 21-year-old in this example. So the point is, start early. And start whenever you can, however old you are, but start. Get your budget in place and start. Here's someone that's 35 years old in the middle column here, but instead of $100 a month, he's investing $350 a month. And he's going to invest till he reaches 67. $350 a month, not $100, but $350 a month. He's not even going to hit $1 million. I mean, $1 million's great. I'll take it. $1 million, I'll take it. But look, it's less than 1.2 million. Isn't that something? And then what if you're 45 years old and instead of $350, you now invest $500 a month? And when you retire at 67, you'll have less than $500,000, which is still good, but it's half of what the 21-year-old was doing with 1/5 of the monthly amount. See the power of starting early? And consistency in investing. This is so important. So wherever you are in life, start, because you're going to be ahead of where you would have been next year if you waited, right? So get started as soon as you can. Any comments about this? Big factor, yeah. And the guy at 45 is chasing it, basically, compared to the 21-year-old, isn't he? Yeah, a lot more. Yep. Let's talk about the 401k. I think that the 401k plan is your greatest wealth building tool that you could have out of all of your investment tools. 401ks are wonderful. They're free money. 401ks or 403bs, I think 403b is for government, if I'm not mistaken, and then SEP plans. They're all the same thing. They're basically retirement planning that has a match. They're by far the best wealth building tool that you can use for retirement. If you have an opportunity to participate in a 401k plan at work, please get involved. If they match, this is the thing I'm talking about, is when the company matches. That's free money. It's like giving yourself a raise. And employers typically will match up to 3%. You put in, sometimes they'll make you put in 3%, sometimes 4%, sometimes 5%. Company I last worked at, I had to put in 5% in order to get to 3%. Max out to get the 3% or whatever they offer on the match. It's free money. And the nice thing is the money is just deducted from your paycheck. You'll never really miss it. And you just get used to it. It just becomes part of your budget. And over time, it's amazing how it grows. It's amazing. And if it's invested wisely, and a lot of employers will offer you investing options. You can pick from mutual funds. Mutual funds are far better than individual stocks because it's much safer. But mutual funds, or they'll give you an option based on your category, age. They'll call this the family life plan or whatever it is. And then you look at what it consists of, and it consists of those types of mutual funds that are maybe a little more conservative. If you're younger, a little more aggressive, you can pick which one you want, but and they will grow. Yeah.
This is the point when we were talking earlier, I know you're not gonna go into it, but it's tax deferred, so it
Yeah.
reduces your taxable liability.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Now, eventually, when you do retire and you withdraw these funds, you'll have to pay the taxes. But, like you're saying, you'll be in a lower tax bracket then, probably, and your tax liability will be less. So, yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Invest your 401k plans, if you have options, based on your risk profile and your age category. Your second greatest wealth building tool is the IRA account. And there are two types of IRA accounts. There are contributions to this type of account. The conventional IRA is the first one. Contributions to this type of account will lower your taxable income at the time that you participate in it. And then later, it's just like the 401k, and then later on when you withdraw the money in retirement, you'll have to pay taxes then. But the nice thing is that it's a way of investing for retirement and planning for the future. So it's a great option. And at the time you participate in this, you don't have to pay taxes. It lowers your adjusted gross, as you were saying, Kim. The Roth IRA is a different structured retirement account. This type of account, a Roth IRA, does not lower your taxable income when you make the contributions. However, later on, when you retire and you withdraw funds from this account, all of it is tax-free. The principal you put in, because you've already paid taxes on that, and everything it earns over time is tax-free. A Roth IRA is far superior to a conventional IRA because it is a source of tax-free income during your retirement years. So if you have a choice between a conventional or a Roth, always go with Roth for the long term. Here's some information about individual retirement accounts in our country. This is from Vanguard, last year's report. And basically what it shows is basically on the left side here, income levels and what people are saving, what they have in their retirement accounts. And so if you look at somebody in the income category of 50 to 75,000, their median IRA account is $25,000. Somebody up to $100,000 of income, say your income is anywhere between 0 and 100,000, that generally means that 51,000 is the median. So the lower your income level, the less you have in your retirement account. But someone in that $50,000 to $75,000 range of income has around $25,000 in their IRA account. Someone with an income level of $75,000 to $100,000 has an IRA balance median of around $51,000. I think that's interesting. Based on your age, looking at the right side of this chart, These are the retirement account balances based on age. So somebody, in the 25 to 34-year-old category has around 15,000 in IRA. 35 to 44, 35,000. 45 to 54, 60,000. That's surprising to me, but it's kind of encouraging in a way, because these balances, if you've been in an IRA or a 401k plan, these balances are not unrealistic for us. Like, say you're a 50-year-old person, your IRA account on median across the country would be around 60,000. If you're like around 40 or so, it'd be 35,000. So it's not like $500,000 here, is it? It's not like big numbers. It's reasonable from what I can see here. So here are 9 reasons to invest in a Roth. The money may grow tax-free. Withdrawals are tax-free too. This is the value of the Roth. This is part in the tax code. It's called the Roth section in the tax code. There's no deduction, as there can be with a traditional IRA, meaning you're going to pay taxes. When you put money in a Roth, you're still going to pay income tax on that money. But everything it earns, from the moment it becomes a Roth account, everything in the future for your retirement, including the principal, which you've already paid taxes on, is now, all of it is tax-free. So that's, the value of it. And there are no required minimum distributions. Both IRAs do not have required minimum distributions for the original owner. Traditional IRAs, Roth and traditional 401ks, other employer-sponsored retirement savings plans do. If you don't need your distributions for essential expenses, RMDs may be hard to keep track of. So that's good that there's no minimum distributions. It gets complicated with calculating it, so that's a good thing. This way, if you have a Roth, you can leave this account to your heirs, to your children, your grandchildren. A Roth IRA has legacy and estate planning benefits. But you need to consider the pros and cons, which can be subtle at times and complex. So you should consult with an attorney or an estate planning expert before attempting to use Roth as part of your estate plan. But in many cases, it can be a great way to leave money for your children. There's tax flexibility in this, in retirement. Because you've already paid the taxes, you can supplement your income or manage your income stream to take advantage of the tax brackets, the 15%, 23%, or whatever they are, 28%, with altering your withdrawals, basically. It helps to reduce or even avoid Medicare taxes that you pay. A portion of Medicare is taxed. And so using a Roth, you can limit your tax exposure when taking Medicare distributions, because you can manage how much you take out of your Roth so that in concert with your Medicare, you can minimize your tax implications. You can use a Roth to hedge against future tax hikes. Will rates go up in the future? There's no way to know. So a Roth might make sense there. You can use your contributions anytime you want. A Roth IRA enables you to take out 100% of what you have contributed at any time for any reason, with no tax or penalties. So that's great. It's very simple, and it's penalty-free. And if you're older, you can keep contributing to a Roth as long as you're working. As long as you have earned compensation, whether it is a regular paycheck or a 1099, you can continue to contribute to a Roth, no matter how old you are. And speaking of contribution limits, here are the max levels. If you're 49 years old or younger, you can put in up to $7,000 in a Roth each year. If you're over 50, they do a catch-up of $1,000. You can put in $8,000. And if you have more than one type of IRA, so you have a traditional IRA and a Roth, your combined contribution on these accounts can't exceed these limits. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think the rule is once you get, I think it's past retirement age, then you have to keep working. I don't know that in your younger years that there is that requirement that you have to be working. Does anybody else know that? Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So I think you can, but if you're like, 68 years old or 70 years old or something, you have to be working in order to contribute to it. That's my understanding of it. Yeah. I can tell. If you're young, your income is likely to rise, so it's important to get into a Roth when you can. The younger, the better. Okay, so let's move on to retirement planning. Here's Earl and Opal, and she says, oh, the years have gone by so fast. He says, I know, they sure have flown by. We're at that age where we've got more behind us than ahead of us. You can say that again. All right. So at what age should I retire? When should I retire? Well, it's more about when can I afford to retire. We have to plan for retirement. And so retirement is more about a number than an age. And it's about carefully planning for retirement. And really it's about how much money do I need to retire? You know, there's 300 million people in this country, more. There's probably 300 million opinions on this as far as how much money do I need to retire. I don't know if they put this in the notes, but the younger you are, the higher the number their opinions are. Like the Gen X's, they think it's like 2 million. The baby boomers, I think they think it's around 1.5 million, and everybody has an opinion. But I would encourage you, while I'm thinking about it, to get on YouTube and look for a guy named Azul. Azul, A-Z-U-L. Listen to Azul about retirement planning. I just really like him. He's got a gentle spirit about him, and he looks at the positive in life. He's a retirement planner. He's doing it for over 20-some years. But on his YouTube channel, he doesn't really offer financial advice. He's careful to say that every time. But he gives you good advice. And he gives us hope and encouragement. So I'm going to go through all these numbers and facts and figures. And my goal is not to discourage you. We're going to go through the math. But you can retire sooner than you think. Don't be discouraged by this data. Yeah. 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 Yeah, because times have changed. Yeah, and I didn't mean to offend you. Sorry if I did. But I like to go to Costco because those hot dogs are still, they're just as long as they used to be. And you get a drink. How old are we going to live? Part of retirement planning is figuring out, well, how many years am I going to live? Well, I think we're going to live to be about 80 on average. Now, if you're a female, you're going to live longer. If you're a male, you might live a little less than that. We know in the Psalms, as for the days of our life, they contain 70 years, or if by strength, 80 years. Hopefully we'll be strong and we'll exceed 80. My precious mother is 98 years old. And tomorrow afternoon, we're going up to see her in Michigan. I think she's a Michigan State fan. Well, how much money do I need to retire? Well, it depends on your life expectancy. It depends on when you want to retire. What age are you going to assume? Like I said, everybody has a different view on what that number is. But we can calculate it. I'm going to share this financial model I built with you, and we can calculate. I'll show you some things, and we'll do some calculations. And then after this workshop ends here in a few minutes, I'm going to have my laptop here. If you want to just play around with some numbers and just put in some assumptions like what you think inflation will be and what you think return on investment will be and what year you want to retire and what your income and what will Social Security be and do you have a pension, blah, blah, blah. We can put that stuff in and have some fun with that. There's a Monte Carlo simulation that does that. They're estimating 1.5 million. Should you or should you not include Social Security? That's a big topic of discussion. And do I really need 1.5 million to retire? Regarding Social Security, I have an opinion on that, and I'll give it to you with no charge. I think personally Social Security is going to be around for a while. I don't worry about it going away. And I think as far as retirement planning, I would encourage you to include it. There's a lot of different things. They say it's going to go bankrupt in 2033, I believe. But I think there's a lot of little tweaks they could make to it to make it last. There's all kinds of little adjustments they could make. And I think at the time where push comes to shove, they'll probably do something to extend it. So I would encourage you to consider that. Now here's an article. It's in the Wall Street Journal a couple years ago. Reported that 86% of retirees in the 65 to 74 age bracket had retirement savings of between $50,000 and $100,000. And were living comfortably. They weren't going out to eat all the time. They didn't have a fancy new car, but they were okay. And they were retired and doing okay. The median retiree in the 100K to 250K savings range were living comfortably too, primarily due to Social Security benefits. So I do think that Social Security benefits is a factor, and it's something we should, I would say, years ago I would say don't include it, but now I think, now that I'm older, I think it's going to be around for a long time, my opinion. So what this chart says is, and we looked at something earlier, but basically, as far as your retirement account balance, most people are under 100,000. 20% of people are between 11 and 99, between 11 and 100,000, and that is 79% of America. So 79% of America has 100,000 or less in their retirement account. So that should say we shouldn't be discouraged by this number. That means that, we're kind of all hanging in there and needing to save and invest. So I think that's actually, comforting in a way. And then what is net worth by age? Median household net worth by age. And it shows basically that, 35-year-olds to 44, it's about 136,000. If you're around 50 years old, it's about 250,000. And this is your all combined, 401k, IRAs, your investments, your net worth. And let me just take a moment and define net worth. Your net worth, very simply, is all of your assets, everything you own, the value of your home, the value of all of your savings accounts and investments, your personal property, that number, that total, minus your debt. Your mortgage, minus your credit card balances, minus your whatever you have, student loan debt, minus your debt. So it's the number of everything you own minus everything you owe. That's called your net worth. And so, a 50-year-old, the net worth in our country is around 250,000. And like Tim was saying earlier, if you have equity, that's a great thing as far as, building equity and, growing wealth for the future. Well, there are different tools you can use for calculating retirement planning. Here are a couple of suggestions for you. Projectionlab.com, that's built by Kyle Nolan. You can use this free online tool, or you can pay $9 a month. I would encourage you to do the free tool. There's honestmath.com. There is newretirement.com. That was built by a guy named Joe Kuhn. And then there's yours truly's planning tool. So here are some assumptions. I built 3 different models for us to look at this morning. One at 45 years old, one at 50, and one at 55. So current age, 3 different charts here. I did married on all 3 of them. And I said we're going to retire at 67 years old, and I call it paradise age. Going to make it to 85, if by strength, 80, 85 years old. Now, I looked up what the average Social Security benefit in the state of Ohio is, and this year it is $1,991.39 if you're single. And of course, if you're married, your spouse adds 50% to that. So that would mean if you're married, your Social Security benefit monthly would be $2987.09 on average. And the average income in the state of Ohio is around $51,000, $52,000. So I put those numbers into this model. And then I put in various balances for what is your IRA balance right now at? Your retirement savings, where is it right now? And so I have 3 levels of that. The average rate of inflation over the last 50 years or so has been 2.1%, so I put that in. And the average rate of return on your investments, I put in a conservative number of 6%. Some people will, the market itself has over time generated, 10 to 12%, but I thought that 6% would probably be a good number for return on investment. And so, given all those inputs, what's the bottom line? So the top section is basically the input section, and that's where I put the numbers in. This is a 45-year-old, and I put in, going to live to 85, income at $54,000. When we retire, what percent of our income will we need to live on? A lot of people recommend 80%. Some, like Azul, will say maybe you can manage on less than that in the future. Are you going to include Social Security? Yes. What would your monthly benefit be each month? And then, do you have a pension? If you had a pension, what will that pension amount be? Or some other income stream, if it's real estate or something else, you'd put that in there. What is your current retirement portfolio balance? It's $25,000 in this example. What is the inflation rate going to be over the next 22 years? It's going to be 2.1, and inflation rate of return, investment rate of return, 6%. So here are the results. The results are you're going to be earning for another 22 years. You'll be retired for 18 years. The $54,000 that you're earning now in 22 years will be the equivalent of $85,000 if inflation is at 2.1%. That's kind of what you were saying earlier, about from years from now. So the 54 will actually equate to 85,000. So 80% of that to live on would be 68,000. So what is the future retirement amount needed? In this example, 1.5 million. So how are we going to save that much money? Well, Social Security, the $29.87 a month that you're getting now will also grow based on the rate of inflation over the next 22 years. So it will also grow, and Social Security benefits over the course of 18 years will account to about 1.2 million. So most of your retirement income needed will come from Social Security. That's why it's so important to, I think, include it. And everything I can see makes me think it's going to be around. So if that's the case, how much money do I need to save outside of Social Security? Well, you're going to need 1.5 minus 1.2. You're going to need 250,000. Now, what will I have saved by then? I will have saved $90,088. That's because the $25,000 I'm investing now at the age of 45 will grow to $90,000 by the age of 67. So what do I need to save additionally? I need to save the 250 minus the 90. I need to save $160,000 over the next 22 years. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to have to save $609 a month. If I wait a year, I'm going to need to save $639. If I wait 3 years, I need to save $700 a month. So these are the results for a 45-year-old. Let's look at the same analysis for a 50-year-old. So a 50-year-old has less earning years, still has the same income, same Social Security. His retirement portfolio, though, but by the time he's 50, it's now at $50,000. And he'll have 17 years of earning, and he'll be retired for 18 years. His income level in 17 years, the $54,000 will grow to $77,000. 80% of that, he'll need to be living on around $61,000 a year. So he'll need about $1.3 million over the course of his retirement period of 18 years. He'll have Social Security of 1.1. He'll need to have 226. He's already saved 50. So the amount that he'll need to save additionally is 91,000. So he'll need to save $449 a month. Let's look at a 55-year-old. A 55-year-old, same type of analysis here. Will be receiving Social Security, but it will actually grow at 2.1%, but only for 12 years, so it won't be as high. But he has saved a retirement account balance of $100,000. And inflation at 2.1, return of investment 6%. So what this says is he's pretty well set because he's already saved $100,000, or she. He needs to save an additional $19 a month, so he's in pretty good shape here. And this is a 55-year-old that has $100,000 in their retirement account. But wait a minute, you said I need $1.2 million. Well, that's because Social Security is a big part of this. It's a big part of retirement. And that helps, especially if you're married. Your spouse gets 50%, and that goes to the income. So it's a household income of almost $3,000 a month. All right, so there's a lot of numbers there. Any questions or comments? Hopefully this is encouraging to you. I think it's the reality of things. So a word about contentment. 2 things I asked of you. Do not refuse me before I die. Keep deception and lies far from me. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with the food that is my portion, that I not be full and deny you, and say, who is the Lord? Or that I not be in want and steal and profane the name of my God. It's all about contentment. So as we work towards retirement and enjoying retirement, let's keep that in mind too, that we don't need to have more than we need. What we need is just what we need to be satisfied. We have 3 options for retirement distributions, and I think we're just probably going to need to stop there. But like I said, I'll have my financial model here if you want to come up and talk with me and play around with it, or if you want me to email it to you. It's an Excel file. I'll be glad to do that. So I have the retirement planning model that I just shared with you. I also have the consistency in investing model. I also have the budget file. I also have an acceleration worksheet. If you want to play around with any of that stuff, I'd be glad to share it with you. So there's 3 options for retirement distributions. First one is called the 50-30-20 rule. And this is about after-tax take-home pay. So 50% ought to be targeting for needs, not wants, needs. Food, utilities, mortgage, that sort of thing. 30% on what you would enjoy, the things that you would like to do. And 20% savings and investing. So this is called the 50-30 rule. You may have heard of that. There's another rule called the 4% rule. This is where they say basically in retirement you'll live on 4% of your retirement account balance. And that basically with no, if you think about it, with no earning at all would last you 25 years, right? So you take that 4%, divide it by 12, and in this example of 1 million, you would live on $40,000 a year. And you'd never touch your $1 million investment if the account were to earn 4%, which matched your withdrawal rate. But if your return were actually zero, like I said, this would last you 25 years. And if you're 67, yeah, that's pretty good. It'll get you into, your 90s. And the last rule that I'm going to share is called the 10X rule. Your retirement savings goal ought to be 10 times your annual salary. So if you make $50,000 a year, you should try to have a retirement account of $540,000. And under this scenario, if your investments continue to earn 10%, then you would basically just be living off, your interest each year, and not removing it. Your $540,000 would be there for your children, your grandchildren, because you'd just be living off of the interest. So I think, unfortunately, we're out of time, and I guess this will be my last slide here about estate planning. Grandchildren are the crown of old men, and the glory of sons is their fathers. And there was another verse too about leaving a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. I love that passage. And our inheritance to our children's children doesn't just have to be money. In fact, it's not just money. It's what we leave for our children's children in terms of the influence we've had on their lives, how we've been a godly influence, hopefully for them, and helped parents raise up their children. So these are the elements of an estate plan, and I believe Brother Hickerson is teaching this quarter. And I think in the material I looked at, he talks about estate planning, leaving a legacy. So I would encourage you to participate in that class if you're not. And so I appreciate your attendance. I'm really grateful I had this stool to sit on this morning. It really helped me. And appreciate all your good comments, and love y'all. And like I said, I'll be around here for a little while. If you want to talk to me about anything, be glad to do that. And who was going to lead our prayer then? Yeah.
Thank you, Jack, for this last couple of days here. If you all could, please bow with me, and I'll dismiss us in prayer. Dear God, thank you for the opportunity for us to gain a lot of wisdom over the last couple of days. We may all have different backgrounds, different demographics, come from different areas, a lot of differences, but at the end of the day, it's about pleasing you and doing your will. Thanks for the opportunity to bring Jack and just give us wisdom with our finances and building our wealth and just building legacy, and also understanding that this is more than just about finances, but about obeying you and building good habits and being wise and just leaning on one another and just really using our talents in the right way. Thank you for all those that were able to come out and just continue to learn, and it's just a good encouragement for all those that were here able to do that. Also, just thank you for just the church family, just helping out with the child care and getting the food and the snacks and all those doing all that behind the scenes work that we may not necessarily see to put this together. And also, God, just thank you for letting us have this opportunity to be with our church family outside of our regular services on Sundays and Wednesdays and just throughout the week, but just giving us an opportunity to understand how we are one family and how we can all just continue to work together. Help us, God, finally just to take what we learned today and, not just put it in our back pocket, not just put it away and think about it, once it comes years down the road, but help us just to really apply it to our lives in whatever way that may need to be, and encourage to share with one another, different generations, with the kids, with the church family, whoever that we may see benefit, and just really share the words that we got today. Be with us, God, throughout the rest of this day, and Lord willing, looking forward to worshiping you tomorrow. In your Son's name we pray, amen.